guys, Miss Elissa here, thinking about you, missing you, knowing that we're all at home doing the things that we're doing, but that we still care about each other and hope to see you soon in person. But in the meanwhile, you get to see us here, like I'm right here right now. And what I was thinking is I would really love to read you a book. This one's called The Boy Who Saved the Stars. Once, on a tiny planet many light years away, lived a boy named Aloe. His home was at the very top of a mountain, a high, high mountain. If you were to stand at the foot of this mountain, you might think, looking up, that the top touched the stars. But this was not true, for the stars are much higher than any mountain. Yet, to reach the stars was Aloe's fondest wish. Here we go. We'll show you the pictures. This is where he lived, way high on that mountain. And there he is. That's Aloe. Though the stars were far, still their light reached his planet. He gathered the starlight in his crystal stone. He had only to hold this crystal toward the sky and let the starlight fall into it and fill it up. The starlight crystal was one of Aloe's two dearest treasures. The other was a lovely rainbow-colored shell whose song was the music of the universe. The first time Aloe pressed it against his ear, he was greatly frightened, for the music was as awesome as it was beautiful. But little by little, the shell's wonderful song became as familiar to him as the steady beating of his own heart. One day, strangely, the music changed. It was slow when it should have been fast, and it was fast when it should have been slow, and it was just slightly off-key. Aloe peered curiously into his shell. Then he shook it. He thought perhaps sand had slipped inside, but none fell out. No matter what Aloe did, the music of the universe sounded different. That night he had another unhappy surprise. The sky seemed dim. Great handfuls of stars appeared to have vanished. How could that be? Aloe wondered. There wasn't a single cloud in the sky. Still, more stars were missing the next night, and the darkness began to take a startling shape. It had a huge round head and a hulking body and two thick arms and two powerful legs. As Aloe watched, the ogre moved. One hand reached out, plucked a shining star, and thrust it into his gaping mouth. Then he went on to eat another, and then another, and so it went. This ogre must be stopped, thought Aloe in alarm, before the sky is completely bare. Now, it so happened that in a deep, dark cave far away from Aloe's mountain, there lived an old, ill-tempered wizard. All that was generally known of him was that though he had the answers to many questions that puzzled ordinary men, it was a dangerous business to seek him out. Aloe knew he must go to him with his problem. The wizard would know how to save the stars. After a long and wearisome journey, Aloe arrived at the entrance to the wizard's cave. It was pitch black inside. Aloe was glad he had his crystal to light the way. The winding tunnel into the cave smelled of rotting things. Eerie sounds like the scratching of rats came from ahead, and frightening shadows leaped on the craggy walls. Aloe trembled just a little, but he went on, and at last, at the very end of the tunnel, he came face to face with the ancient wizard. The wizard was surrounded by a host of dreadful pets, and his small eyes squinted meanly into the crystal's light. Aloe was anxious to make his visit as short as possible and told him quickly about the ogre and the plight of the stars. "That means nothing to me," drawled the ill-tempered wizard. In fact, he added, he'd quite forgotten what stars looked like. He hadn't seen any in such a long time. Aloe told him how they twinkled and how beautiful they were, but the wizard just looked bored and yawned. What did interest him was Aloe's precious crystal, glowing so brightly in the dingy cave. Finally, the wizard agreed to tell Aloe how to slay the ogre. "But," snapped the wizard, "only if I can have your starlight crystal as payment." Though Aloe talked and pleaded and talked, the ill-tempered wizard would not change his mind. With a heavy heart, Aloe gave him the crystal. In any case, he told himself, it wouldn't glow much longer if there were no more stars to light it. Greedily, the wizard snatched Aloe's crystal. Then he gave his advice. "You must pierce the ogre's heart with a magic sword. My cousin, the Estalian witch, took mine, or I might have lent it to you." The wizard scowled as he thought of his cousin. "You are welcome, of course, to seek her out and see if she will give it to you. Estalia, as you might guess, lies to the east." The wizard cackled. That. Aloe didn't think this advice was worth the price of his crystal. But before he could open his mouth to protest, the wizard vanished in a puff of blue smoke. It took Aloe a long time to find his way out of the dark cave without his starlight crystal to guide him. In the future, he vowed, he'd have to be more guarded with his prized possessions. The Estalian witch sat on a grassy riverbank, peering into the water and braiding her long hair. "Excuse me," said Aloe, to get her attention. Then he told her about the ogre who was eating the stars. She was no more interested than the wizard had been. "What?" she sighed. "Does that have to do with me?" "You've got the magic sword that I need," Aloe said. The Estalian witch looked none too pleased to hear this. "The stars are so far away," she said, "much too far to make such a fuss about." "You say that now," Aloe answered. "But if the ogre gets tired of eating stars and comes here to eat this planet instead?" That gave her something to think about. Twisting one of her long braids, she said, "If I give you the sword, what will you give me?" All Aloe had to offer was his beloved rainbow-colored shell. It grieved him greatly to part with it. However, he thought, if all the stars disappeared, the music would sound flat and dull. So he offered the Estalian witch his shell. "A shell?" she snorted. "I'll have to take a look at it first." If I just hand the shell over to her, Aloe thought, she might well try to disappear. So he gave her the shell with his left hand and secretly clasped one of her braids with the right. As soon as the witch laid hands on the shell, she began to dissolve into a swirling mist. Indeed, she would have vanished completely had Aloe not had a firm grip on her braid. When she saw that she had been outsmarted, she grew furious and tried to frighten him into letting go. Lightning flashed around her in angry tatters, and terrifying crashes of thunder rolled. All the while, Aloe held her braid fast. At last, she grew tired. The thunder and lightning and mist faded away. She drew the sword from the folds of her robe. "Here's your sword. Now let go of me," she cried. But he held her fast and said, "The sword does me no good if I must stay here. To slay the ogre, I must reach the sky." As he spoke, a red cloud appeared over the hills. It grew larger and larger, and soon Aloe saw that it was not a cloud at all, but a great red bird. Swiftly the bird flew across the plains and landed gently beside the two. It looked at the boy with impatient eyes. "Come, let's be off," it seemed to say. A small gold saddle was strapped to its back, and a golden bridle adorned its head. Aloe released the witch at once and sprang onto the red bird's back. The wind whipped Aloe and his bird wildly as they soared up and up toward the stars. The sky became a deep and velvety black. The winds died away, and Aloe was able to look around. To the right and to the left, colored stars shone. But straight ahead, everything was dark. The work of the ogre, Aloe thought, that the ogre himself was nowhere in sight. All at once, there was a rushing and whirling. Dust and meteorites spun by. In the midst of this, Aloe saw the ogre, his greedy eyes, his hungry mouth. As he saw the ogre's hand reach for him, he swung the sword with all his might. Again and again, he slashed at the darkness till the magic blade reached the ogre's heart. With one bright flash, the ogre exploded, and millions of stars went tumbling through space. The darkened sky once again grew bright. The terrible ogre was no more. Aloe never returned to his little planet. With his fiery bird, he set off to roam the heavens, always staying close to his beloved stars. If once in a while, on a summer night, you see something red streak across the sky, it might be a comet, or a shooting star, or a tiny boy on a great red bird. The end. Isn't that a great book, you guys? I really love it. I look forward to reading another book for you and maybe having some other activities. You guys have a great day. Take care. Stay safe. Bye.